The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the kind of silence that comes before bad news. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in a great circular hall made of crystal and living metal. The stars could be seen through the transparent ceiling above them. In the center of the chamber floated a large blue hologram. It showed a distant star system on the edge of known space. That system once belonged to a young species called humanity. Now it was burning. The council had gathered to watch the final moments of the human defense. Many of them believed this meeting would mark the end of the short and foolish rise of Earth. They believed humans had challenged the wrong empire. They believed this would be a lesson to every weak species in the galaxy. The hologram shifted. A massive alien armada filled the darkness. Thousands of warships blocked out the stars. Their hulls were black and sharp like blades. Energy weapons flashed across space. Explosions bloomed like silent flowers. In front of this unstoppable force stood a much smaller human fleet. Their ships were simple in design. Gray metal. No glowing decorations. No dramatic shapes. They looked ordinary. Outmatched. Doomed. A tall reptilian council member leaned forward and spoke in a calm voice. This is what happens when primitives forget their place. Several others agreed. The humans had been warned. They had been offered protection under council law. But humans had refused to kneel. They had refused to give up control of their colonies. They had spoken about freedom and independence, words that older species considered childish. The battle recording zoomed closer. Human ships were retreating. One by one, they jumped away from the fight. The alien armada advanced without resistance. The council chamber filled with low laughter. "They run," said another council member. Just as expected. But then the recording focused on one final human warship. It was heavily damaged. Fire burned across its hull. Weapons were offline. It drifted alone in front of the enemy fleet. The alien flagship moved closer. A transmission was sent. The chamber speakers translated the alien command. "Human vessel, surrender. Power down all systems. Prepare for capture." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the human ship responded. The hologram shifted to show the human bridge. Sparks fell from broken panels. Smoke filled the air. Crew members moved with calm focus. No panic. No shouting. At the center stood a human commander. His uniform was torn. Blood marked his face. But his eyes were steady. He looked at his tactical officer and nodded once. "Confirm retreat success," he said in a quiet voice. "All fleets have cleared the system," the officer replied. The commander took a slow breath. Then he opened a channel to the alien flagship. The entire council leaned forward. The human commander spoke clearly. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have crossed the final boundary. Phase 7 confirmed. Initiate Dark Doctrine." The transmission ended. The reptilian council member frowned. "What does that mean?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, the hologram began to change. At first, nothing seemed different. The alien fleet prepared to fire on the damaged human ship. Energy cannons charged. But then the stars behind them flickered. One star dimmed. Then another. And another. It was subtle at first. Easy to miss. Then entire sections of space went dark. Council scientists rushed to analyze the data. Their instruments showed something impossible. The human fleet had not simply retreated. They had activated devices hidden across the system. Devices placed inside asteroid fields. Devices buried within moons. Devices hidden near the system star. The star itself began to pulse in an unnatural rhythm. The alien armada tried to jump to hyperspace. Escape failed. Jump drives shut down. Navigation systems crashed. Communication signals vanished. A cold wave of energy spread across the system like invisible fire. One by one, alien warships disappeared. Not destroyed. Not exploding. They simply vanished from existence. No debris. No distress calls. Just empty space. The council chamber grew quiet again. But this silence was different. It was fear. "What weapon is this?" whispered a small insect-like delegate. Data flooded the chamber screens. Human code signatures appeared everywhere. The system's gravity was being twisted. Space itself was being folded and compressed. The alien fleet was trapped inside a collapsing pocket of controlled space. The humans had turned the entire star system into a weapon. The damaged human ship remained at the center. Its engines reignited for a brief moment. The commander looked at his crew one last time. "Doctrine complete," he said softly. Then the ship jumped away. Seconds later, the system imploded inward. Light bent. Space cracked like glass. And then there was nothing. The hologram ended. Where once a star system existed, there was now a silent void. No star. No fleet. No signal. The Galactic Council did not speak. They could not. The oldest among them had witnessed supernovae and galaxy-wide plagues. But this was different. This was planned. Cold. Precise. A war strategy built not to win a battle, but to erase an enemy completely. Finally, the reptilian member spoke again, but his voice no longer carried pride. Humans destroyed their own system. A council scientist corrected him in a shaking tone. No, they evacuated it weeks ago. Every colony, every resource. They knew the invasion path. They prepared this trap long before the first shot was fired. Another screen displayed a final human message recovered from deep space. It was not a threat. It was not emotional. It was simple. Humanity does not seek war. But if forced into it, we do not fight to survive. We fight to end the threat forever. The chamber lights dimmed as emergency signals from other border systems began to arrive. Human fleets were moving again, not retreating this time, advancing. The council members looked at each other with growing understanding. Humanity had not been desperate. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had been waiting. And now the galaxy understood something too late. Humans did not fear extinction. They had faced it before on their own world. They had survived fire, ice, disease, and their own wars. If pushed to the edge, they would burn entire stars before they would kneel. The Galactic Council had expected a simple conquest. Instead, they had awakened something ancient inside the human race. As the chamber doors slowly closed and emergency meetings were called, one thought echoed silently in every mind present. The Galactic Council was not ready for humanity's darkest war doctrine. The Galactic Council chamber did not return to normal after the destruction of the star system. The void left behind was not only in space, but also in the minds of every leader present. The system had been erased with perfect precision. No warning, no negotiation, no mercy. The Council had seen wars before, but this was something different. This was strategy without emotion. This was patience mixed with total destruction. And now they needed answers. Within hours, emergency investigations began. Every archive, every signal, every record about humanity was pulled from the Council databases. At first, the information seemed harmless. Humans were a young species from a small yellow star system called Sol. They had only entered faster-than-light travel a few centuries ago. Compared to ancient galactic civilizations, they were children. Their technology had developed quickly, but nothing about it suggested star system destruction. Nothing suggested the ability to bend gravity or fold space into a weapon. Yet the evidence was clear. The Dark Doctrine had been real. A tall avian council member studied the human history file with growing concern. They were divided for most of their existence, she said quietly. They fought among themselves for thousands of years. The holographic display shifted to images of ancient Earth. Massive wars, explosions, cities in ruins, primitive weapons evolving into nuclear fire. The council members watched carefully. Human history was filled with conflict. World wars, civil wars, cold wars, revolutions, economic collapses. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself more than once. Why would a species survive this long if they are so violent? Asked a synthetic intelligence representative from a machine civilization. A historian answered, because every time they nearly destroyed themselves, they rebuilt stronger. The room grew quiet again. The files continued. Humanity had faced global pandemics, climate disasters, and resource shortages. They had lived under constant threat. Yet instead of collapsing, they adapted. They created alliances. They improved technology. They turned war into science and science into power. Another discovery appeared on the screen. A classified human military archive recovered from a destroyed relay station. It was heavily encrypted, but Council cyber experts had managed to unlock fragments. One phrase appeared again and again inside the documents. Dark Doctrine. A reptilian general leaned forward. Define it. The translation algorithm struggled, but slowly the meaning became clear. The Dark Doctrine was not a single weapon. It was not a single plan. It was a philosophy of total war. It was built on one simple belief. If survival is threatened, remove the threat permanently. No half measures. No limited engagement. No honorable battlefield. The document described layers of preparation, evacuation protocols for entire star systems, hidden infrastructure inside asteroid belts, weapons placed decades before conflict began, psychological warfare to confuse the enemy, controlled retreats designed to guide invaders into traps. The Council began to understand something terrible. The humans did not create the Dark Doctrine after the invasion started. They had created it long ago, possibly before joining the galactic community. A smaller mammalian delegate spoke with fear in his voice. This means they always expected betrayal. No one disagreed. The files showed records of early council meetings with human diplomats. The humans had smiled. They had spoken about peace and cooperation. They had signed trade agreements. They had followed interstellar law. But in secret, they had continued building something else. Backup colonies hidden in deep space. Self-sustaining fleets. Mobile shipyards. Independent communication networks outside council control. They had prepared for isolation. They had prepared for war against superior forces. They never trusted us, the avian member said. A machine voice responded calmly. Correction. They trusted probability. Their history taught them that peace is temporary. The chamber lights dimmed as another recovered file appeared. It was a recorded speech from a human military leader decades before the current war. His voice was steady. We hope for peace. We prepare for extinction. If the day comes when the galaxy decides we are weak, we will show them the cost of that mistake. The council members watched in silence. This was not arrogance. It was certainty. Humanity had studied its own violent past and turned it into a survival system. Every war on Earth had been a lesson. Every loss had been analyzed. Every mistake had been recorded. The Dark Doctrine was the final result of thousands of years of human conflict. It was evolution through suffering. A council scientist displayed energy readings from the destroyed system again. The star collapse had not been random. It had been engineered slowly over time. Small devices placed near the star's core years earlier. Energy siphoned carefully to avoid detection. A trap built with patience. How long were they planning this? Someone asked. The answer came quickly. At least 40 standard cycles. That meant before the first alien fleet had even entered their territory. The humans had already chosen possible battlefields. They had already selected which systems could be sacrificed. They had already moved civilian populations without raising suspicion. This was not desperation. This was design. A wave of quiet fear moved through the chamber. The council had believed humanity was emotional and divided. They had believed humans argued too much to unite fully. But the archives told a different story. When threatened from outside, humans unified with frightening speed. Political differences vanished. Old enemies became allies. Resources were redirected instantly. Entire industries transformed into war production within weeks. They are unpredictable, said the reptilian general. The historian shook his head slowly. No, they are very predictable. If attacked, they escalate. The difference was important. Humanity did not seek conquest. The record showed that clearly. Their expansion had been slow and careful. They focused on defense, trade, and technology. But every defense network had hidden offensive capability. Every colony had evacuation plans. Every fleet had fallback coordinates that led not away from battle, but toward prepared kill zones. The Council received new reports from border regions. Human fleets were mobilizing again, not in panic, not in chaos, in perfect order. They moved like pieces in a game that had already been planned. The realization settled heavily across the chamber. The destruction of the star system had not been a last act of survival. It had been the opening move. The Dark Doctrine was active now, and if the Council continued this conflict, more systems would fall. More fleets would vanish. The galaxy had believed humanity was young and inexperienced, but youth had given them something dangerous: creativity, flexibility, ruthless adaptation. As the emergency session continued deep into the cycle, one final encrypted message was decoded from the human archive. It was a single sentence written at the top of the dark Doctrine file: "If war comes to our door, we will make sure it never knocks again." For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council understood that they might not be facing a rebellious young species. They might be facing the most dangerous survivor the galaxy had ever produced. The first contact between humanity and the Galactic Council had not begun with war. It had begun with curiosity. Many cycles ago, a Council exploration vessel entered the Sol system after detecting unusual energy signals. They expected to find another primitive civilization just learning how to leave its home planet. Instead, they found humans already building stations around their moon and mining the outer planets. Humanity had advanced quickly, faster than most species at that stage. The Council observed them for several months before revealing themselves. When the alien ships finally appeared near Earth, the human response was not fear. It was caution mixed with excitement. World leaders gathered. Scientists debated. Military forces prepared quietly, just in case. But the humans chose diplomacy first. A large meeting was organized in orbit above Earth. The alien delegation arrived in a shining vessel shaped like a crystal tower. Human representatives waited inside a newly built space station. The meeting was tense but peaceful. Humans spoke about cooperation, trade, and shared knowledge. They admitted they were still learning. They did not pretend to be powerful. The Council saw this as a sign of weakness. Over the next few years, humanity joined the wider galactic community. They traded rare minerals from their system. They shared medical research and artificial intelligence software. They learned faster than light travel from Council engineers. On the surface, everything appeared normal. Humans were polite but independent. They did not rush to join military alliances. They refused to give up control of their defense forces. They listened more than they spoke. Many older species found them strange, too emotional, too creative, too unpredictable. Still, they were useful. A small human colony was later established near the border of a powerful alien empire known for expansion. The Council believed this would test human loyalty. If trouble came, humanity would surely ask for protection and accept deeper control. Trouble did come. The alien empire claimed the region as its territory and demanded that the human colony evacuate. The message was clear: leave or be removed. The Council watched carefully. They expected panic. Instead, the humans requested negotiation. They sent diplomats. They asked for peaceful discussion. The empire refused. It saw humans as weak and divided, a young species without strong allies, an easy target. Without waiting for Council approval, the alien empire launched a military strike on the human colony. Warships arrived in orbit. Defense platforms were destroyed within minutes. The colony governor sent a distress signal toward Earth. The Council chamber recorded everything. Many members believed this would be the moment humans finally accepted their place under Council protection. They waited for Earth to beg for help. But Earth did not beg. Instead, something unusual happened. Human communication from the colony suddenly stopped. No more distress calls. No surrender message. No emergency broadcast. Just silence. The alien empire interpreted this as collapse. They deployed ground forces to secure the colony. What they found confused them. The cities were empty. Infrastructure abandoned. Civilian transports missing. It was as if the population had vanished overnight. Meanwhile, deep space sensors detected human fleets moving away from the border region, retreating again, just like in the recent battle. The Council members watching the recordings at that time believed it was proof of human fear. They did not understand that silence was not surrender. It was calculation. Weeks later, the alien empire pushed deeper into former human territory. They captured empty mining stations. They destroyed unmanned outposts. Every victory seemed too easy. Human fleets stayed out of direct combat. They avoided major battles. They gave up ground without resistance. Some Council members began to question this pattern, but the dominant opinion remained the same. Humanity was not ready for true war. Then the Empire crossed an invisible line. It entered a sector filled with resource-rich asteroid belts and unstable stars. The region looked valuable, worth controlling. What the Empire did not know was that humans had mapped every gravitational shift in that area decades earlier. They had quietly installed observation devices inside asteroids. They had built hidden relay stations disguised as debris. The moment the Empire's main fleet entered the region, human forces acted. Jump gates in nearby systems shut down. Long-range communication signals began to distort. Navigation systems inside the alien ships experienced strange errors. Still, the Empire pushed forward, confident in its superior numbers. Back on Earth, human leaders held a secure meeting. Military commanders, scientists, and civilian representatives stood together. There was no argument, no division. The decision was unanimous. Activate the prepared response. In orbit around a nearby star, a series of small devices awakened. They had been placed there years earlier under the excuse of scientific research. Now they shifted the star's magnetic balance. The result was not immediate destruction. It was controlled chaos. Solar flares increased in strength. Radiation storms filled the region. The alien fleet struggled to maintain formation. Engines overheated. Shields weakened. Then human ships appeared at the edges of the system, not charging into battle, not engaging in direct combat. They targeted supply vessels first, then communication hubs. They cut the fleet apart piece by piece. Confusion spread among the alien commanders. They could not understand why the humans did not fight in open formation, why they avoided direct confrontation. The answer was simple. Humans had learned long ago that pride wins battles, but patience wins wars. Within days, the alien fleet was stranded and divided. Rescue attempts failed because hyperspace routes had been disrupted by hidden gravitational anchors. Eventually, the Empire was forced to retreat. It suffered heavy losses, not from direct firepower, but from environment manipulation and strategic isolation. When the news reached the Galactic Council years ago, many members dismissed it as a lucky defensive success. They did not see it as a warning. Now, sitting in the chamber after the destruction of an entire star system, they finally understood. The First Contact War had not been humanity's desperate defense. It had been a test, a small example of what they were willing to do if pushed further. Humanity had shown restraint then. They had allowed the alien empire to retreat. They had not erased a star, but they had learned. They had improved. And when the next invasion came, they did not repeat the same scale of response. They escalated. The council members sat in uneasy silence as the old recordings ended. The pattern was clear. Humans offered peace first. They requested dialogue. They warned their enemies. But if those warnings were ignored, they did not respond with anger. They responded with preparation. And preparation, when finished, became something far more dangerous than simple revenge. The alien empire believed they were winning. After the first border clashes, human forces continued to retreat deeper into their territory. Colony after colony was abandoned. Mining stations were left empty. Defense platforms were powered down. To the Empire's high command, it looked like fear. It looked like weakness. Reports were sent back to their capital saying the humans lacked courage for prolonged war. The Galactic Council watched carefully, but did not interfere. Some members felt uneasy, remembering the past incident near the unstable star region. But the Empire's fleet was massive this time. Larger, better prepared. They believed numbers alone would secure victory. The invasion moved forward in organized waves. First came reconnaissance ships, then heavy destroyers, then carriers filled with ground forces. Each system they entered showed the same pattern. Human presence detected, then sudden evacuation, then silence. The Empire grew confident. They broadcast messages across open frequencies, mocking humanity. They called them cowards. They claimed Earth would fall within months. Human channels did not respond. On Earth, however, there was no panic. There were no emergency protests or political chaos. Governments worked together with unusual unity. Civilian ships moved quietly between systems, transporting populations to secure locations. Factories shifted to military production. Research stations activated hidden projects that had been funded years before. Everything followed a clear structure. It was as if this invasion had already been predicted. Deep inside former human territory was a region known as the Helios Corridor. It was rich in resources and strategically important. Several stable jump routes passed through it, making it the fastest path toward the inner colonies and eventually Earth. The alien empire identified it as the perfect target. If they secured Helios Corridor, the war would be over quickly. What they did not know was that Helios Corridor was never meant to be defended in a traditional way. Human fleets made one final stand at the edge of the region. A moderate-sized defensive force engaged the Empire's forward units. The battle was brief. Human ships fought just long enough to confirm enemy fleet positions. Then they retreated once again, jumping deeper into the corridor. The alien admiral smiled at the tactical display. "They are cornered," he declared. "Prepare full advance." Thousands of alien ships entered the Helios corridor. At first, everything appeared normal. Sensors detected abandoned stations and empty cities on scattered moons. The Empire celebrated early victory, but as more ships crossed into the region, small problems began to appear. Long-range communications experienced delays. Nothing serious, just minor interference. Navigation systems showed slight gravitational distortions, but still within acceptable range. Engineers assumed it was natural stellar fluctuation. Then the first jump gate failed. A supply fleet attempting to bring reinforcements into the corridor reported complete shutdown of the hyperspace node. The structure had not been destroyed. It simply would not activate. Engineers worked quickly, but the gate remained offline. Inside the corridor, more strange readings began to appear. Asteroid fields shifted in unnatural patterns. Energy signatures flickered in empty space. Some captains reported ghost signals that vanished when scanned directly. The alien admiral ordered increased sensor sweeps. Still, no direct enemy fleet was detected. Meanwhile, on a hidden human command vessel far outside the corridor, a calm voice spoke. "All enemy primary forces have crossed the boundary. Confirm isolation stage." Multiple officers confirmed at once. Isolation stage confirmed. The Helios Corridor had never been just a resource region. It had been redesigned over decades. Small gravitational anchors were hidden inside asteroids. Relay nodes were buried deep within moons. Solar collectors surrounded nearby stars, ready to redirect energy flows. Every element was placed carefully, waiting for one condition: full enemy commitment. When the final alien carrier group entered the region, the signal was given. Across the corridor, dormant devices activated. Gravitational anchors increased local mass distortion, making hyperspace travel unstable. Communication arrays emitted controlled interference waves. Long-range signals were scattered into background radiation. Within minutes, the alien fleet realized something was wrong. Attempts to jump out of the corridor failed. Navigation systems returned error after error. "Stabilize jump calculations," the admiral ordered. But the calculations would not stabilize. Every escape route showed unpredictable collapse points. Then the second phase began. Human cyber warfare units initiated remote attacks on alien ship networks. At first, it seemed like small glitches. Weapon systems requiring manual override. Targeting data lagging behind real-time movement. But soon entire squadrons lost coordination. Identification signals became scrambled. Some ships mistakenly locked weapons onto friendly vessels before systems shut down to prevent disaster. Panic slowly replaced confidence. The alien admiral demanded answers. "Where is the human fleet?" he shouted. The reply came with fear. "Unknown, sir. They are not engaging directly." That was the truth. Human ships remained at the outer edges of the corridor, watching, waiting. They did not need to charge into battle. The corridor itself was now the battlefield. Supply lines from outside were completely cut off as more jump gates failed. Fuel reserves inside the trapped fleet began to drop. Food supplies were calculated for long campaigns, not isolation. Stress spread through alien command ranks. Then the stars began to change. A nearby star within the corridor increased its solar activity beyond natural levels. Solar flares erupted, striking sections of the alien fleet. Shields absorbed most of the energy, but constant exposure drained power reserves. Engineers worked without rest. Sleep cycles were ignored. The alien empire had not entered a defended zone. They had entered a cage designed to weaken them slowly. Days passed. Human fleets finally appeared on the edge of sensor range. Not in one large formation. In small, coordinated groups. They targeted isolated enemy clusters. Quick strikes. Then retreat. Each attack precise. Each withdrawal planned. The alien admiral realized too late that they had followed the exact path the humans wanted. Every retreat had been an invitation. Every abandoned colony had been bait. The Helios corridor was never meant to be protected. It was meant to trap. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, reports from the front reached the delegates. The Empire's massive fleet was silent. Communication sporadic. Escape impossible. A council strategist whispered the truth. None wanted to accept. They were not invading human space. He paused, studying the tactical map. They were guided into it. Inside the trapped fleet, morale began to break. Officers argued. Captains demanded permission to attempt risky emergency jumps. But calculations showed catastrophic failure probabilities. To jump blindly into unstable space was almost certain death. And so they remained, surrounded not by visible enemies, but by invisible walls, watching their power levels drop, waiting for the next phase of whatever plan humanity had prepared. The trap was complete, and the dark doctrine was only beginning to unfold. Inside the trapped Helios corridor, the alien empire finally understood that this was not a normal war. Their fleet, once proud and unstoppable, was now isolated in hostile space. Supplies were falling. Communication with their capital was almost gone. Human ships did not rush in for a final battle. They waited. They observed. They calculated. Back on Earth, the High Command of the United Earth Defense Fleet gathered in a secure underground chamber. The room was simple. No dramatic lights. No celebration. Large holographic maps showed the Helios corridor in detail. Every alien ship was marked. Every power fluctuation recorded. At the center of the room stood Admiral Sophia Kareem, leader of the defense fleet. Her voice was calm as she addressed her officers. Phase 3 complete. Isolation confirmed. Prepare implementation of full dark doctrine. A young officer hesitated before speaking. Admiral, some council species are requesting negotiation channels. They are concerned. Admiral Kareem looked at the tactical display. We offered negotiation before the invasion. They ignored it. The doctrine is active. We finished this. The dark doctrine was not only about traps and star manipulation. It had layers. It was built from centuries of human history. On ancient Earth, wars were not won only with weapons. They were won with logistics, information, and psychology. Humanity had learned that destroying an enemy's was more effective than destroying their soldiers. In the Helios corridor, the next phase began quietly. Human cyber units intensified their attacks. Instead of shutting down alien ships completely, they caused controlled malfunctions. Life support systems flickered for seconds before stabilizing. Internal communication channels filled with static. False sensor readings appeared and vanished. The goal was not immediate destruction. The goal was exhaustion. Alien crews began to lose sleep. Engineers worked without pause. Every small system failure created stress. Officers suspected sabotage within their own ranks. Trust began to break down. Meanwhile, human forces targeted supply ships hidden within the trapped fleet. Quick precision strikes disabled fuel carriers and ammunition transports. Without supplies, even the largest warship became useless metal drifting in space. The alien admiral ordered strict rationing. Fuel use was limited. Weapons were powered down except in emergencies. But the humans had predicted this response. Gravitational anchors inside the corridor slowly increased distortion levels. Navigation required more energy to maintain stability. Even drifting consumed power. Then came the economic attack. Far from the battlefield, human intelligence units targeted the alien empire's trade networks. Hidden agents disrupted financial systems. Trade partners received anonymous data exposing the empire's aggressive expansion plans. Neutral species began to distance themselves. Supply contracts were suspended. Insurance rates for alien shipping increased sharply. The empire's economy started to shake. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, debates grew louder. Some members demanded a ceasefire. Others feared that if humanity was allowed to continue, they would become too powerful. But no one had a clear solution. Military intervention against humanity now seemed dangerous. The destroyed star system was proof of that. Back in the corridor, alien morale continued to decline. Rumors spread among crews. Some believed the humans had found a way to control space itself. Others feared hidden superweapons waiting to activate. The uncertainty was worse than open battle. Human psychological warfare units transmitted short, encrypted messages into alien frequencies. Simple phrases repeated again and again. You were warned. This can end. Retreat is still possible. The messages did not threaten. They offered choice. That choice created division among alien commanders. Some wanted to attempt a risky breakout. Others wanted to request surrender terms. The admiral refused both. Pride still guided him. He believed reinforcements would arrive, but reinforcements never came. Jump gates outside the corridor remained offline due to carefully timed gravitational pulses. Human engineers adjusted the distortion levels daily, preventing any stable hyperspace corridor from forming. The trap was dynamic. It adapted to enemy attempts. After several cycles of isolation, the final stage of Phase 4 began. Human fleets moved closer, not in full assault, but in coordinated waves. They targeted communication ships first, ensuring the alien fleet could not reorganize effectively. Then they focused on command vessels. Using advanced electronic warfare, they isolated the admiral's flagship from the rest of the fleet for several critical minutes. During that time, human strike groups disabled 3 major destroyers guarding it. The message was clear. The humans could reach any target they wanted. They simply chose not to destroy everything at once. The alien admiral finally opened an emergency channel toward the Galactic Council. His image appeared in the chamber, tired and angry. "This is not honorable war," he declared. "They manipulate space, minds, and systems. They do not fight face to face." A quiet human observer present in the council responded calmly. Humanity learned long ago that survival is not about honor. It is about results. The chamber fell silent. In the Helios corridor, alien ships now operated at minimal efficiency. Fuel reserves were critical. Crew fatigue was extreme. Internal conflicts had broken out on several vessels. Small mutinies were reported and suppressed. Then Admiral Kareem gave the next order. Initiate demonstration. At the center of the corridor, a controlled gravitational surge activated near an unoccupied section of space. The distortion was strong enough to tear apart a small, unmanned asteroid field. The alien fleet watched in fear as space itself twisted and compressed. It was a reminder of the destroyed star system. The humans did not need to say what could happen next. A direct transmission followed. Admiral Kareem appeared on every alien screen. Her expression was firm, but not cruel. "This conflict ends now. Withdraw all forces from human space. Sign binding non-aggression terms. Acknowledge responsibility for the invasion, or remain inside the corridor and face final protocol." She did not explain what final protocol meant. She did not need to. The alien admiral stared at the distorted space outside his viewport. His fleet was weakened, divided, and trapped. The Dark Doctrine was no longer a rumor. It was reality. Humanity had not fought for revenge. They had built a system designed to remove threats completely and efficiently. Inside the council chamber, members waited for the Empire's response. They finally understood the full meaning of the Dark Doctrine. It was not rage. It was not cruelty. It was calculation without mercy when survival was at stake. And now the galaxy watched as the trapped Empire faced a choice it had never expected to make. Surrender to a species they once called weak, or risk being erased from history. Fear does not spread loudly across a galaxy. It moves quietly, through reports, through broken signals, through silence where powerful fleets once stood. After weeks of isolation inside the Helios corridor, the news could no longer be hidden. The alien empire's grand invasion fleet was trapped, cut off, weakening. Across nearby star systems, merchant ships changed their routes to avoid human territory. Independent colonies increased their defense alerts. Even species that had once laughed at humanity now watched them with careful respect. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions continued day and night. Large holographic maps showed the Helios corridor glowing red, marked as unstable and restricted. Around it, human fleet movements appeared in calm blue patterns. Perfect formation, controlled expansion. They were not charging across the galaxy. They were securing positions, strengthening borders, acting with discipline. They are not behaving like conquerors, one council diplomat observed. They are behaving like guardians. Another member replied quietly, guardians who build cages around their enemies. Reports from the trapped alien fleet grew worse. Fuel reserves had dropped below 40%. Medical facilities were overwhelmed with stress-related illness. Equipment failures increased daily. The alien admiral had stopped sending confident speeches. His last transmission to the council was short. We require diplomatic intervention. That message alone shocked many species. The Empire had not asked for help in centuries. They had always been the aggressor, never the victim. Now, they were requesting mediation. Some council members argued that humanity had gone too far. Destroying a star system was extreme. One delegate said, if we allow this behavior, no one is safe. But a machine intelligence representative responded with pure logic. The star system was evacuated before destruction. Civilian loss, 0. Target, military fleet only. Human escalation followed invasion. Cause and effect remained clear. The debate grew heated. For the first time in modern galactic history, the council felt divided not by politics, but by fear. They had misjudged humanity, and that miscalculation had consequences. Beyond the council, rumors spread through civilian networks. Stories of human warships that could bend gravity. Stories of stars turned into weapons. Stories of entire fleets erased without warning. Many of these stories were exaggerated. But fear does not require accuracy. It requires imagination. On Earth, daily life continued with surprising calm. News of the war was controlled, but not hidden. Citizens understood the danger. They also understood the reason. The invasion had been unprovoked. The response had been prepared. Public support for the defense fleet was strong. There were no large protests demanding surrender. Human history had prepared them for moments like this. They had faced extinction before. This time, they would ensure it did not repeat. In a secure command center orbiting Mars, Admiral Sophia Kareem reviewed new intelligence. Border systems report reduced hostile movement. An officer said, neighboring species are reinforcing their own territories. No one wants to be next. Kareem nodded. We do not expand. We do not threaten. Maintain defensive posture. This instruction was important. The Dark Doctrine was not about domination. It was about final deterrence. Humanity wanted the galaxy to understand one clear rule. Invasion would lead to irreversible consequences. Meanwhile, inside the Helios corridor, the alien fleet struggled. Attempts to repair jump gates from within failed again and again. Gravitational distortion patterns shifted unpredictably, always preventing stable escape routes. Human engineers adjusted the anchors carefully, enough to maintain the trap, not enough to cause uncontrolled collapse. It was a demonstration of power without chaos. On one alien warship, a young officer stared at the distorted stars outside the viewport. Why don't they just destroy us? He asked quietly. His captain answered with bitter understanding. Because this is worse. They want us to remember. Back in the council chamber, a proposal emerged. Send a high-level delegation to negotiate directly with humanity. Offer ceasefire terms. Demand release of the trapped fleet in exchange for formal peace. The vote was tense. In the end, the majority agreed. The risk of continued escalation was too great. A diplomatic vessel was prepared immediately. Before departure, one elderly council member spoke privately to the delegation leader. Do not threaten them. Do not accuse them. We misjudged this species. Now we must correct that mistake. The delegation traveled under neutral flags toward the Sol system. As they approached human space, they expected heavy military escort. Instead, they were guided calmly by automated navigation signals. Human border patrol ships observed from a distance, but did not interfere. The message was clear. Humanity was confident. They did not need to intimidate. When the delegation arrived in orbit above Earth, they were welcomed formally. The same species that had once been viewed as young and reckless now stood with quiet authority. The human representative who greeted them spoke in simple words. "We did not start this war. We will end it, but we prefer peace." Those words echoed through Council communication networks. Peace was still possible, but it would not be peace on old terms. It would be peace shaped by the memory of the Helios corridor. As negotiations began, the trapped alien fleet received orders from their capital. Hold position and await diplomatic outcome. For the first time since the invasion began, active combat operations paused. Yet the gravitational anchors remained active. The trap remained closed. It was a reminder that trust would take time. Across the galaxy, observers watched closely. Smaller species quietly updated their military doctrines. Larger empires reconsidered expansion plans. The balance of power had shifted without humanity, firing a galaxy-wide shot. They had demonstrated capability and restraint at the same time. In the council chamber, one final report summarized the situation. Human forces remained disciplined. No civilian targets struck. No expansion beyond original borders. Strategic objective appears defensive. A quiet realization settled over the chamber. Humanity had not revealed the dark doctrine to conquer the galaxy. They had revealed it to protect their future. And that might be even more powerful. As diplomatic talks continued above Earth, and the alien fleet waited inside its invisible prison, the galaxy faced a new truth. The age of underestimating humanity was over. From this moment forward, every decision involving Earth would be made with caution, because now everyone understood something simple and undeniable. If pushed too far, humanity would not just fight back. Humanity would reshape the battlefield itself. The diplomatic talks above Earth continued, but inside the Helios corridor the tension did not fade. The alien fleet remained trapped, their massive ships floating in unstable space, surrounded by distorted stars and invisible gravitational walls. Supplies were critical. Crew morale was low. Yet the dark doctrine had not fully revealed its final layer. Humanity believed in preparation beyond preparation. Every trap had a second trap hidden behind it. Admiral Sophia Kareem stood inside the Mars Command Center, studying a new tactical projection. The Helios corridor glowed softly in blue and red lines. Around it, small human fleets held position like silent guardians. An intelligence officer stepped forward. "Admiral, we have detected encrypted communication attempts from within the trapped fleet. They are trying to bypass our interference using old analog signal methods." Kareem nodded slowly. "Expected. Initiate Phase 7 Deception Protocol." The officer hesitated. "Full activation?" "Full activation," she confirmed. Inside the corridor, alien engineers worked without rest. They had discovered that certain narrow regions of space showed weaker distortion. If they aligned enough ships together and combined power output, they might be able to force a temporary jump corridor. It was risky, but desperation removed fear. The alien admiral approved the plan. Hundreds of ships adjusted formation. Energy output increased across the fleet. Reactors burned at dangerous levels. Slowly, a narrow, stable corridor began to form in the distorted space ahead of them. Cheers spread across alien channels. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. But they did not realize something important. The region of weaker distortion had been allowed to appear. Human engineers had carefully reduced anchor strength there, creating the illusion of weakness. On the edge of the system, human monitoring stations tracked every movement. "They are committing to the corridor," a tactical analyst reported. Admiral Kareem watched without emotion. Let them believe they found the gap. The alien fleet surged forward, channeling all remaining power into the unstable hyperspace path. The first wave of ships entered the corridor. For a few seconds, it held steady. Then Phase 7 activated. Hidden solar collectors around a nearby star redirected massive energy bursts into the gravitational anchors. The distortion field intensified instantly. The corridor twisted violently. Ships inside it were not destroyed, but violently displaced. Instead of escaping, they were thrown deeper into the Helios corridor, scattered and separated from main formations. Panic exploded across alien communication lines. Ships collided. Navigation systems failed completely. Several vessels drifted into high radiation zones created by controlled solar flares. The corridor had never been an escape route. It had been a funnel. On Earth, news of the attempted breakout reached the diplomatic chamber. The Council delegation watched live tactical updates with silent horror. They allowed it. One delegate whispered, "They let our fleet try." The human representative responded calmly, "We study behavior. We predicted desperation." Back inside the corridor, scattered alien ships struggled to regroup. Without stable communication, command structure began to collapse. Smaller squadrons made independent decisions, some attempting blind jumps despite the risk. Several ships vanished into unstable space, never reappearing. Others drifted powerless after reactor overloads. The human fleet finally moved in closer than ever before, not to annihilate, but to isolate remaining organized clusters. Precision strikes disabled engines and weapon systems without targeting life support. The message remained consistent. Humanity could end it at any moment, but they still offered a choice. Then the final layer of the dark doctrine revealed itself. At the center of the corridor, near a medium-sized yellow star, hidden stellar manipulation platforms activated fully for the first time. These platforms had been placed years earlier under scientific research permits. Now they synchronized. The star began to fluctuate in brightness. Not enough to explode, not enough to collapse, but enough to demonstrate control. Across the alien fleet, every sensor displayed the same terrifying data. The star's core temperature was being altered artificially. A controlled stellar cascade could begin within hours if triggered. The alien admiral stared at the readings in disbelief. "They can turn the star into a weapon," he whispered. A human transmission followed immediately. Admiral Kareem appeared once again on every screen. "This is the final demonstration. We will not repeat it. Your fleet will power down all weapons. You will transmit unconditional withdrawal from human space. Your government will sign binding peace accords witnessed by the Galactic Council. Refusal will result in full stellar cascade activation." Her tone was calm. No anger. No shouting. The threat was mathematical, not emotional. In the council chamber above Earth, silence filled the room. The delegates finally understood that humanity had layers of response beyond imagination. They did not escalate randomly. They escalated step by step, giving their enemy time to reconsider. But each step was more powerful than the last. Inside the Helios corridor, alien captains contacted their admiral one by one. Fuel nearly gone. Systems failing. Crew exhausted. And now a star ready to be turned against them. Pride no longer mattered. Survival did. Slowly, the alien admiral opened a channel to both humanity and the Galactic Council. His voice was no longer strong. "We accept withdrawal. We request immediate stabilization of stellar activity." On Mars, Admiral Kareem listened carefully. She nodded once to her engineering team. "Stellar platforms, reduce output, maintain monitoring." The star's fluctuations began to stabilize. The distortion field softened slightly, though escape was still controlled by human command. Across the trapped fleet, weapons powered down. White surrender signals replaced attack formations. For the first time since the invasion began, the Helios corridor was quiet, not silent with fear, quiet with decision. Humanity had not destroyed the fleet. They had broken its ability to threaten. Back in the council chamber, one delegate spoke softly. "The galaxy will remember this day." Another answered, "Yes, and we will remember who forced it." The Dark Doctrine's final layer was never about total destruction. It was about absolute control over escalation. Humanity had shown they could erase fleets and reshape stars, but they had also shown restraint. As the alien fleet prepared for controlled exit under human supervision, a new understanding settled across the galaxy. Humanity did not seek domination. They sought security so strong that no one would dare challenge it again. And now, after witnessing a star bend to human will, no species in the Council could honestly say they were ready for what humanity had become. The alien empire staggered under the weight of their own mistakes. Their pride had led them into a trap meticulously prepared decades ago, and now their massive fleet was broken, not destroyed, but powerless. Across the Helios corridor, human ships held positions at precise intervals, not attacking recklessly, but maintaining constant pressure. Supplies were low, crew morale shattered, and command structure weakened by isolation and controlled chaos. Every attempt at coordination had been anticipated by humanity, and every attempt to escape had been carefully countered. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, discussions grew tense. Some delegates suggested immediate military intervention against humanity, fearing they might strike again. Others argued that the humans had already demonstrated remarkable restraint, and that attacking them would risk total catastrophe. "They control space itself," whispered one elder member. "Not just fleets, but stars, communications, and even our perception of risk." The reality was clear. Humanity's dark doctrine had shifted the balance of power in the galaxy without firing a single unrestricted shot. Inside the trapped fleet, alien officers convened emergency meetings. Some argued for surrender. Others still clung to pride, hoping reinforcements could arrive from distant systems. Every jump gate remained disabled. Attempts at hyperjumps failed. Engineers worked tirelessly, but the gravitational distortions imposed by hidden human devices were dynamic. They adjusted constantly, ensuring that even desperate maneuvers would fail. Frustration grew. Panic spread. Several squadrons began to disobey orders, attempting dangerous blind jumps. A few ships were lost instantly to the distortion fields, disappearing into voids where space itself was manipulated by human technology. Inside the United Earth Defense Fleet, Admiral Sophia Kareem monitored every movement. Tactical teams displayed alien fleet positions, energy reserves, and communication status. She spoke calmly to her officers. "They are desperate. Let them exhaust themselves. The final phase will begin only when they truly comprehend the cost of their aggression." Meanwhile, deep space human intelligence units acted beyond the Helios corridor. They disrupted the Empire supply lines, intercepted long-distance communications, and spread subtle misinformation among allies and neutral species. Slowly, the alien empire's economy began to crumble under pressure. Merchant guilds refused to transport supplies to distant colonies, fearing entanglement in humanity's defensive network. Neutral species reconsidered old alliances, some quietly strengthening their own fleets for protection. Across multiple star systems, rumors of the Dark Doctrine spread faster than data transmissions. The story of the destroyed star system, the manipulated fleets, and the controlled stellar distortions created waves of unease. Entire empires began to reevaluate their expansion plans. Humanity had not fired a galaxy-wide weapon, yet the message was clear. No species could ignore the consequences of crossing them. Within the Helios corridor, the trapped alien fleet's commanders met for one final time. "We are losing cohesion," said one captain. "Our ships cannot maintain formation. Fuel is at critical levels. Crew exhaustion is near breaking point." The admiral's face was pale under the dim lights of his command bridge. "And yet, they have not destroyed us," he muttered. "Why?" An officer answered quietly. "They want control, not revenge. The doctrine is about escalation management, not total annihilation." For the first time, the admiral understood the true meaning of humanity's strategy. It was not emotion-driven. It was not vengeance-driven. It was a system of layered deterrence, designed to remove threats and force compliance, without unnecessary destruction. As the alien fleet deliberated, a new human maneuver began. Small strike groups moved with precision to isolate remaining functioning clusters. Systems were disabled with minimal loss of life, further demonstrating calculated restraint. No sudden explosions, no mass casualties, just control. Humanity wanted the Empire to understand its limits, and to recognize that any misstep would have consequences beyond imagination. Back in the Galactic Council, the situation prompted urgent debate. "If we do not act," said one member, "they will define the rules for every species. Our fleets, our borders, our expansion, all will be constrained by Earth decisions." Another responded, "Yet they have not sought conquest. They do not attack without provocation. We cannot justify retaliation without becoming aggressors ourselves." Amidst the tension, humanity's diplomats remained calm. They communicated simple messages to both the Council and the alien empire. "Withdraw, acknowledge wrongdoing, and accept terms of non-aggression, or face full escalation. Inside the Helios corridor, alien crews finally relayed their decision to surrender under strict conditions. Weapons powered down. Ships transmitted white surrender signals. Fleet movements ceased. Admiral Kareem observed silently. The corridor remained under human control, but the crisis had ended. Humanity had not expanded its territory. They had not destroyed the fleet outright. They had demonstrated complete control, decisive escalation, and unshakable discipline. Across the galaxy, observers began to record these events for future generations. Military academies revised doctrines. Council delegates made plans for treaties and oversight. Even species long considered superior realized they had misjudged humanity. Back on Earth, Admiral Kareem convened her officers. "Phase 8 complete," she said. "We have shown the galaxy our limits. Now we maintain vigilance. The doctrine is active, but only as long as necessary." The room was quiet. No celebration. No prideful speeches. Just focus. Humanity's war strategy had proven effective beyond imagination, yet it had not created enemies unnecessarily. The trapped empire would leave with its fleet intact, its honor preserved, but its perspective forever changed. And across the council, across neutral worlds, and in every corner of the galaxy, a single truth became clear. Humanity had mastered war without fighting a single unrestricted battle. They had reshaped not only the battlefield but the perception of power itself. Fear had spread quietly, through observation, through knowledge, and through the subtle demonstration of absolute control. The age of underestimating humanity was over. Every species now knew that if provoked, Earth would not fight merely to survive. It would fight to redefine the rules of survival across the galaxy. And the legacy of the Helios corridor would ensure that lesson endured for generations. The aftermath of the Helios corridor operation left a galaxy forever altered. News of the trapped alien fleet, the manipulated stars, and the calculated restraint of humanity spread rapidly, transmitted through every council network and civilian channel. Even species that had never directly interacted with humans began to adjust their strategies, assuming that Earth was no ordinary world. Inside the United Earth Defense Fleet, Admiral Sophia Kareem oversaw recovery and reorganization. While the Dark Doctrine had succeeded, her officers were already planning for potential future threats. Every fleet, every outpost, every sensor network was evaluated for vulnerabilities. "We must ensure no species can repeat this mistake," Kareem told her command team. "Preparation is the only guarantee of survival." Diplomats continued negotiations with the alien empire. The surrender terms were strict but reasonable. The trapped fleet would be allowed to return to home space under strict monitoring, with all hyperspace and jump gate technologies carefully examined. No humans were harmed in the process, but the Empire would remember every detail of their entrapment. In the council chamber, the event prompted both fear and respect. Debates about humanity's place in galactic politics intensified. Several delegates called for special treaties to define Earth's rights, while others proposed limits on human technological access. Yet even these attempts were met with caution. The records from the Helios corridor demonstrated that humanity's restraint did not equate to weakness. On Earth, the civilian population celebrated quietly but purposefully. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel had all contributed to the success. Unlike other species, humans did not rely solely on brute force. Instead, they combined foresight, strategy, and patience. Across space, observation posts recorded ongoing movements. Small human fleets returned to standard patrol patterns. Sensors still monitored the Helios corridor, though now it was quiet. The alien empire slowly recovered, though the scars of misjudgment lingered. Political leaders held emergency sessions, questioning how a young species could execute such precision. The Galactic Council dispatched fact-finding missions, but even their most advanced teams struggled to interpret the methodology behind the Dark Doctrine. Phase 9 of humanity's plan involved reinforcing this deterrence. Instead of expanding aggressively, they focused on intelligence gathering and preparation. Hidden outposts were reinforced quietly, and star systems bordering hostile empires were mapped with extreme precision. Supply networks were hardened. Evacuation protocols were updated. Every system could now serve as both a sanctuary and a potential trap. Admiral Kareem reviewed simulation data. "Every alien response has been anticipated," she said. "We need to remain vigilant, but also measured. Escalation is effective only if controlled." Across the trapped alien fleet, the story of the Helios Corridor spread quickly. Some species within the Empire questioned their leadership for underestimating humanity. Others began subtle reforms, reevaluating their own expansion policies. Humanity had forced an entire empire to reconsider its approach without destroying it. Meanwhile, humanity's history continued to serve as a guide. Ancient wars, pandemics, and natural disasters had shaped a species capable of calculated patience and rapid adaptation. The Dark Doctrine was simply the culmination of centuries of learning. The Council's top strategists studied it endlessly. Some feared that humanity could dominate the galaxy if provoked again. Others argued that their restraint made them the most stable power. This paradox created tension within the Council. Earth had demonstrated its power, but had also proven it would not act without cause. In orbit above Mars, Admiral Kareem convened a meeting with her most trusted officers. "The Helios Corridor demonstrated the doctrine," she said. "Now we shift to maintenance, surveillance, intelligence, and readiness. The galaxy must see us as capable, not reckless." Her officers nodded. The emphasis was on preparation, not aggression. Back on Earth, human scientists monitored the stars and gravitational anomalies. They perfected technologies used in the Helios Corridor, ensuring that any future conflicts could be contained before escalation. Artificial intelligence systems coordinated fleet movement, supply lines, and communication networks across the solar system. The alien empire slowly began to comply with withdrawal orders. Ships emerged from the Helios Corridor under human guidance. Their fleet diminished in cohesion, but intact in form. Leaders returned home, aware of their miscalculation and cautious of future interactions with humanity. As they reached their borders, many species began establishing long-term treaties with Earth, prioritizing diplomacy and trade over conflict. But the lessons of the Helios Corridor were never forgotten. The galaxy understood that humanity's strength lay not just in technology, but in strategy, patience, and the willingness to escalate only when necessary. Across the United Earth Defense Fleet, new protocols were implemented. Simulation exercises focused on layered defense, coordinated restraint, and psychological operations. Humanity had learned that victory was not about brute force alone, but about controlling perception, resources, and time. Finally, Admiral Kareem addressed her officers once more. "We have proven that humanity can protect itself and its allies, but the doctrine is not a weapon to wield recklessly. It is a shield and a warning. Let it remain so." The officers acknowledged this. Across the galaxy, smaller species began modeling their own strategies on human methodology, though none could match the depth of preparation that came from centuries of survival. The Council itself adopted new protocols, ensuring that no species underestimated another again. Humanity had reshaped the rules of engagement, and the Helios Corridor remained a symbol of calculated restraint and total control. As humanity returned to normal patrols and preparation cycles, the galaxy watched. Every civilization now knew that if provoked, humans would respond with precision, patience, and overwhelming effectiveness. The age of underestimating humanity was truly over. Every fleet, every empire, every species understood one truth: Earth would not merely survive conflict, it would redefine it, and those who challenged humanity would learn consequences the hard way. The galaxy breathed cautiously after the events of the Helios Corridor. Word of humanity's dark doctrine had spread to every council member, every neutral system, and every ambitious empire looking to expand. No species doubted Earth's capabilities anymore. Even the once proud alien empire, which had attempted to invade, now approached humanity with respect and caution. Back on Earth, Admiral Sophia Kareem observed the reports coming in from the Helios Corridor and surrounding border systems. The alien fleet had withdrawn under strict supervision, but the humans remained vigilant. Every jump gate, every sensor, every fleet movement was monitored. The doctrine demanded constant readiness. "Phase 10 begins," Kareem announced to her officers. consolidation, surveillance, and strategic deterrence. The galaxy must see our power, but also our restraint. The officers nodded. Their training and experience had taught them that the Doctrine was as much about perception as action. Across the galaxy, the alien empire's leadership struggled to process the defeat. Their diplomats were careful in every communication, their fleets moved cautiously, and their intelligence units continually reported the possibility of hidden human traps. Their pride had been wounded, their confidence shaken, and their future strategies now included humanity at the center of every calculation. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, initiated a special session to evaluate humanity's new position. Delegates debated the implications. "We underestimated them for centuries," said one elder representative. "Their history, their strategy, their patience, all of it designed for survival, yet now it becomes a template for deterrence." Another member, a synthetic intelligence from a distant system, responded, "It is no longer a question of morality or aggression. It is strategy. Humanity has mastered escalation and restraint. Any misstep against them risks total collapse." On Earth, the civilian population understood that their species had survived something unprecedented. Stories of the Helios corridor circulated in news networks, education programs, and historical archives. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists were recognized for their decades of preparation. Children studied the events, learning how humanity had combined history, technology, and patience to survive a galactic threat. Deep inside the defense fleet, Admiral Kareem oversaw the expansion of surveillance networks. Hidden outposts were established in every nearby star system. Communication relays monitored potential threats. Fleets were rotated to maintain readiness without exposing the galaxy to unnecessary provocation. Humanity had not sought conquest, but it ensured that no species could underestimate it again. Meanwhile, the alien empire restructured its command. Internal reviews were conducted. Officers responsible for the misjudgment were reassigned. Every decision was now weighed against the lesson of the Helios corridor. Other species watched, some quietly updating their doctrines, others forming alliances that avoided confrontation with humanity. Across neutral systems, trade negotiations now included security clauses directly referencing the Doctrine, acknowledging that humanity's strategic capabilities could not be ignored. In orbit above Mars, Admiral Kareem convened a final council of her top officers. "The Dark Doctrine has succeeded," she said, "but its strength lies not only in action, but in perception. We must maintain this balance. We are ready to defend, but we are not aggressors." Officers reviewed new simulations. They adjusted fleet positions, updated evacuation protocols, and analyzed potential threats. Each action reinforced the perception that humanity could escalate decisively, but also that it would do so only when survival was at stake. Far across the galaxy, minor species took note. They studied the strategies employed during the Helios corridor operation. Lessons were drawn, alliances reconsidered, and conflicts avoided before they even began. Humanity had reshaped not only its own defense, but the understanding of power and deterrence throughout the galaxy. Within the alien empire, fear remained a subtle but constant presence. Leaders avoided rash decisions, their fleets moved cautiously, and every interaction with human space was negotiated carefully. The memory of trapped ships, scattered fleets, and controlled stellar threats lingered in every officer's mind. The Galactic Council adopted new regulations to prevent underestimation of emerging civilizations. Humanity's actions became a case study in interstellar diplomacy, strategy, and restraint. Other species now knew that survival required not only strength, but understanding the true power of calculation. On Earth, Admiral Kareem reflected on the events. The Dark Doctrine had succeeded beyond expectation, but it was never about domination. It was about survival. Preparation, patience, and controlled escalation had ensured that humanity could withstand the galaxy's threats while maintaining moral restraint. The final step of Phase 10 was subtle but critical. Humanity broadcast a simple message to the galaxy. We seek peace. We seek cooperation. But aggression will be met with decisive consequences. The message was calm, measured, and carried the weight of the Helios corridor's lessons. Across star systems, species received it with clarity. Some felt fear, some respect, but all understood the warning. The Doctrine had proven that humanity could escalate faster and with greater effect than anyone imagined, yet also that restraint was the foundation of their power. In the years following, humanity solidified its position in the galaxy. They did not expand recklessly, nor did they seek revenge. Their fleets patrolled carefully. Surveillance networks monitored space for signs of conflict. Knowledge of the Dark Doctrine was widespread, ensuring that no species misjudged them again. And so, the galaxy entered a new era, one where humanity was no longer underestimated, one where every decision involving Earth or human space carried the weight of careful calculation and unyielding preparedness. Across civilizations, the Helios Corridor became a legend, not because of the destruction it caused, but because of the restraint it demonstrated. Humanity had survived, defended, and taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Survival was a combination of intelligence, patience, and the willingness to escalate when absolutely necessary. And in the quiet halls of Earth's command centers, Admiral Sophia Kareem and her officers prepared for the future, knowing that the galaxy would never again mistake humanity for weak, reckless, or unpredictable. They had become a force that could not be ignored, a species ready to defend itself, its people, and its future with unshakable precision. The age of underestimating humanity had ended, and the galaxy had learned that lesson well.